What if I told you one of America's most legendary musicians once owed $16 million and paid it back not with lawyers, but with a guitar and a late-night infomercial? That a man who stood on stage with presidents, who wrote some of the most iconic songs in country music history, had everything taken. His ranch, his recording studio, even his memories? But this isn't a story about downfall. He's 92. He's defied expectations, and yet, even now, something still seems missing. That's where we begin. Willie Nelson has survived more than most legends do in a single lifetime. Financial collapse, bitter betrayals, industry blacklists. But in recent months, he's launched an album with songs by Rodney Crowell, dropped a THC tonic, and hit the road again. No sign of slowing down. So what drives this man forward? What's the secret at the heart of his story? Stay with me, because the next twist is coming. And it's not what you expect. Willie's journey started in a Nashville that demanded perfection. Clean-cut looks, traditional instruments, country cliches. But his voice was rough, his ideas edgy. By the late 60s, the system flat-out rejected him. No surprise, then, that he slipped into the shadows, writing hits like Crazy and Hello Walls, and watching others reap the rewards. Here's the hook you weren't expecting. The very industry he helped build closed ranks against him. Across town, Kris Kristofferson was on his own path to rebellion. A Rhodes Scholar turned janitor at Columbia Studios, he brought war-torn grit and poetic heartbreak to every lyric. Nashville couldn't handle songs steeped in regret, existential drift, or moral complexity. He didn't fit the mold. It wasn't talent, they saw that. It was authenticity. His music was too real, too human, for a business built on neat packages. Two outsiders, two futures. Willie penned timeless classics by day, by night, wrestling with rejection. Kris scraped by, scraping songs off typewriters, clinging to a dream. Their bond was forged in that shared struggle, a brotherhood born of rejection. But even brothers drift, and theirs would be no exception. After years of Nashville's cold shoulder, Willie was ready to walk away. But there was one lifeline. It came from Kris. He told Willie to leave Music City behind and head to Austin, where the outlaw country scene was breathing for the first time. In that moment, Willie's life shifted. He packed up and left, stepping into uncertainty, but clutching freedom. If he'd taken Nashville's offer, we'd never know the outlaw legend. Hint: that advice changed everything. Austin didn't just give Willie space to breathe, it gave him room to become. He ditched the clean-shaven image, grew a beard, played his own way, on his own terms. No more dull radio formulas, no more commercial scripts. He found himself. He became the voice of a new generation, one that demanded honesty. His albums Shotgun Willie and Red-Headed Stranger weren't just records. They were rebellions. While Willie found new life, Kris soared in his own orbit. By the early 70s, he was everywhere. Platinum records, film roles, award shows, a star with brains and grit. And the success was brutal. For Willie, seeing his friend become the poster boy of outlaw country stung. It wasn't envy, it was fracture. Two dreamers, born from the same soil, growing in different directions. As Kris climbed, the gap between them widened, and the silence grew. Then came the flip. While Kris faltered, struggling with alcohol, crumbling relationships, fading relevance, Willie exploded. In Texas, he became unstoppable. Leader of a movement, heart of a revolution. His stadiums filled, his albums soared. Red-Headed Stranger went gold. Shotgun Willie defined an era. He wasn't just surviving, he was flourishing. He was reclaiming what was always his. but at what cost? But the biggest test was still ahead. In 1990, the IRS seized his assets, claiming $32 million in back taxes from bad investments. His ranch, his guitars, everything gone. He responded with an album, the IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories? The profits went straight to the IRS, clearing the debt. It was perhaps Willie's greatest performance, turning disaster into defiance. Fast forward to today. Willie Nelson isn't slowing down. He just dropped his 77th studio album, Oh What a Beautiful World, a heartfelt tribute to Rodney Crowell. Half the tracks written since 2013, he's touring again, with Bob Dylan, launching the Outlaw Music Festival's next leg on June 20th. No set lists, no scripts, just raw honesty and that warble we know as Willie's. He might even call it reading the room, but and there's more. His family album is alive. His sons, Lucas and Micah, play alongside him. Mickey Raphael, his decades-long harmonica partner, is still there. His 40-year-old Farm Aid Festival is back for its milestone anniversary. His business ventures now span cannabis, biodiesel, even golf. His net worth? Around $25 million. Not insane for a legend, but it's a fortune built on survival, reinvention, and unshakable independence. So here's the question. At 92, what keeps him going? Is it legacy, passion, stubborn joy, or something deeper? A need to mend the bridge with Kris, now gone. When Kristofferson died in September 2024, at age 88, when Willie's star was burning brighter than ever, Kris found himself drifting into the shadows. But under the surface of that reversal, their bond quietly held strong. Willie watched Kris falter, not with schadenfreude, but with a brother's empathy. He understood the toll of stardom, of late nights turning into regrets, and he refused to let their friendship crumble, no matter how twisted the narrative around them grew. You'll sense the tension rising here, the pull between loyalty and desperation. Through it all, Willie never let success change his feelings for Kris. He admired the raw honesty in Kris's songs and remembered the early nights in Nashville, scribbling lyrics in dingy studios. Willie never lost sight of the man who pushed him towards Austin, reminding him that freedom meant more than chart positions. Even as Kris grappled with personal demons and fading fame, Willie saw the heart behind the mystique. And that recognition kept their connection alive. But then came Rita Coolidge, a muse with luminous talent and a spirit wild enough to charm two outlaws. Rita landed in their orbit in the early 70s, meeting Kris with a spiritual, plane-bound spark that felt like fate. Their whirlwind romance led to a 1973 marriage and 3 collaborative albums, Full Moon, Breakaway, Natural Act, each record pulsing with chemistry and creative intensity. What happens when love and art collide so fiercely that the rules all break down? Kris fanned the flames of their partnership. Rita's vocals soared alongside his, winning Grammys and lighting up concert stages. But underneath the glitter, trouble stirred. Addiction, jealousy, emotional extremes, they all started to crack the facade. Their marriage became a furnace of intense highs and devastating lows, collapsing under pressure in 1980. Kris emerged broken, his career splintering, his heart heavy, and Willie by his side with concern, not judgment. Their rivalry over Rita became a silent struggle, one neither dared to voice. Willie may have wondered if Kris had taken everything: fame, respect, even the affection he himself felt for Rita. Kris may have stung at the idea that his friend had been closer to the woman he'd married. But the three never confronted the truth. Words remained unspoken. Emotions roiled beneath polite conversation and shared stages, but never spilled into confrontation. That unspoken tension became a lightning rod in their friendship. While Willie's ascent continued, packing stadiums, leading outlaw country, redefining authenticity, Kris spiraled. Legal and emotional ballast sank him deeper. His albums lost traction, and odd behavior fueled rumors of erratic outbursts. It was a downward spiral predated only by the collapse of his marriage. Against that backdrop, Willie stood tall, his integrity intact, but shadowed by guilt. He watched his friend unravel, haunted by the question, had he betrayed him? Kris's alcoholism took center stage, becoming both metaphor and monster, a public spectacle and private shame. His explosive energy that once fed his art now consumed it. Meanwhile, Willie waged his own battles, legal drums, tax troubles, and near ruin during the IRS's $32 million claim. But when it mattered, Willie responded with defiance, recording the IRS tapes and paying off his debt. The country rallied behind him, and through much darker days, Willie still found space to mourn for Kris. Their relationship became one of parallel universes, intertwined yet drifting. On stage, at events like the Highwaymen reunions, they performed together, smiles intact. Offstage, old secrets undercut old bonds. How do you carry love when it morphs into sorrow? That question hung over them like a song without a chorus. When Kris remarried in 1983, and later remarried again, and Willie built a life woven with his own family, their lives diverged further. Then came news that would reframe everything. Kris Kristofferson passed away in September 2024 at 88. In his Maui home, it was sudden and surreal. He had retired in 2021 due to Lyme disease, but maintained a quiet presence until the end. His death sent waves through music communities. Willie, now the last living highwayman, confronted silence. No more Kris to talk to, no more unspoken apologies or unresolved grief. So here's the knife-edge moment in their story. With Kris gone, how does Willie reckon with the past? With the secret sparks, the unvoiced pain, and that love triangle that never saw closure. His grief would not just be for a friend, but for unresolved guilt, a chance never given to make things right. He lost everything, his ranch, his studio, even his guitars. But what followed wasn't surrender. It was a masterstroke of redemption. In the late 1980s, Willie Nelson found himself deep in debt after trusting shady advisors and bad tax shelters, and in 1990, the IRS hit him with a staggering $16 to $32 million claim. The government seized nearly all his assets, turning him into a cautionary tale overnight. Facing public humiliation and near ruin, Willie didn't retreat. He performed his greatest act of defiance yet. He stared down the abyss and recorded the IRS tapes. Who'll Buy My Memories? A raw, acoustic album sold directly via infomercials and mail order. With nothing but his voice and guitar, he reached into fan loyalty and raised $3.6 million, enough to clear most of the debt. The album later hit stores in December 1992, and Sony backed its distribution, even helping return seized assets as friends quietly repurchased and lent them back to him. Imagine the nerve it took to turn financial calamity into a public declaration of survival, and somehow come out stronger. Across the country, Kris Kristofferson reached a different reckoning. His battle wasn't with tax collectors, it was with demons he couldn't fully silence. Alcoholism and emotional pain from his divorce and career decline had shadowed him since the early 80s. Though he continued to record and act, Tracks like Help Me Make It Through the Night and Me and Bobby McGee remained beautiful remnants of a past that felt increasingly distant. The man who had once rewritten country's rulebook was now chasing echoes of himself. Willie, meanwhile, rebuilt on his own terms. He sued Price Waterhouse for their role in the tax scheme, eventually settling and regaining control. He refocused on touring, replanting his roots in Farm Aid, recording critically acclaimed albums, and collaborating with legends like Paul Simon and Bob Dylan. His comeback wasn't just financial, it was spiritual. His fans saw it, and they came back harder than ever. Kris, however, found solace in seclusion. Settling in Maui, he embraced quiet days with his wife Lisa and their blended family. Even as he withdrew from the spotlight, his legacy endured. 3 Grammys, Country Music Hall of Fame induction, and roles in films like A Star Is Born. When he died peacefully on Maui, September 28, 2024, at age 88, tributes poured in, from Dylan to Johnny Cash, to a life that always defied expectations. Today, Willie continues, as he always has, resilient, artful, unbowed. He still tours, still records, and still surprises. Yet at 92, life's simpler pleasures carry weight. His family, the Farm Aid legacy, and the shift from smoke to edibles, embracing wellness over rebellion. Even his estate reflects that balance. A few luxury cars, mostly vintage Cadillacs and Lincolns, an array of Rolex and Panerai watches, and properties including his famed Texas ranch. No private jet, but savvy investments in cannabis, biodiesel, and a golf course diversify his portfolio. His children, Lucas, Micah, Amy, are woven into his shows and businesses, and he carries insurance for health, touring, and assets. His net worth is around $25 million, modest by celebrity standards, but built on creative agency and fiscal recovery. Lesson? Legacy isn't inherited. It's forged through failure, reinvention, and the courage to stand when the world bets against you. He lost everything. Not gradually, not quietly, but in a single crushing sweep. Willie Nelson, once flush with fortune and freedom, watched as the IRS dismantled his empire brick by brick. The number they hit him with, $16.7 million, was so astronomical it seemed impossible to climb out from under it. They took his ranch, his studio. In a move that blurred the lines between defiance and brilliance, he recorded an album titled The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories? A raw, stripped-down compilation sold not in stores, but through late-night infomercials. It sounded absurd, yet this oddball strategy tapped directly into the veins of America. Fans responded. They picked up their phones and bought the album not just for the music, but for the man behind it. This wasn't commerce, it was solidarity. Imagine the nerve it took, selling his personal pain track by track, as a way to buy back his own freedom. And remarkably, it worked. With help from friends, including a few who secretly bought back his seized possessions and returned them anonymously, Willie clawed his way out of the financial abyss. Sony stepped in to distribute the album, and as checks began trickling in, so did redemption. Not just of debt, but of identity. The IRS tapes weren't merely about paying bills. They became a public declaration of survival. Each acoustic strum echoed the story of a man who refused to be erased. And in that refusal, something extraordinary happened. The music got better. There was no elaborate production, no commercial polish. Just Willie, his guitar, and a truth too sharp to ignore. His struggles became songs, his loss became language, and in telling his story, he gave others permission to face their own. While Willie was building his way back through melodies and grit, Kris Kristofferson was fading quietly into the margins. His battle wasn't with taxes or courts, but with the ghosts that had always trailed him. The drinking never truly left him. It simply receded into silence. The divorce from Rita, the woman who once steadied his storm, marked the point where something inside him finally dimmed. He kept performing, yes, but the spark dulled. The spotlight no longer offered comfort. Instead, he drifted further from public life, finding solace not in applause, but in isolation. He relocated to Maui, away from the stage, the headlines, and the weight of who he used to be. And though he kept writing, occasionally appearing in tribute concerts or surprise cameos, the Kris the world had once known had quietly folded himself away. It's haunting. Two friends, parallel yet separated. One using music to rebuild a life shattered by scandal. The other retreating from the very industry they once revolutionized. In January 2024, Kris Kristofferson passed away at the age of 87, surrounded by family, but far from the stages that once echoed with his voice. His death wasn't just the end of a life. It was the closing chapter of an era. And for Willie, who had long called Kris his brother in art and rebellion, the loss was more than personal. It was historic. Two men who had once stood shoulder to shoulder, singing against the grain, were now down to one voice left to carry the weight of their legacy. Yet Willie didn't stop. With each passing year, his music grew only richer. He didn't chase charts or trends. He pursued truth. And with that, his artistry entered a kind of late-life renaissance. He wrote songs about aging, loss, grace, and stubborn joy. He collaborated with his children, Lucas and Micah, who inherited not just his musicality, but his quiet rebellion. His granddaughter joined him on stage. His band became a family. His concerts? More like family reunions. Even in his 90s, Willie still performs, still records, still raises his voice for causes that matter. His Luck Ranch outside Austin became a hub for independent musicians and artists, while his cannabis company, Willie's Reserve, redefined what it meant to turn lifestyle into enterprise. Where others slowed down, Willie expanded. He co-owned a golf course, invested in biodiesel, and refused to buy into the excess of the jet-set celebrity. He doesn't own a private jet, preferring his tour bus, still named Honeysuckle Rose. His car collection, mostly old Cadillacs and Lincolns, is a testament to nostalgia, not flash. He's worn Rolex and Panerai watches, not for the luxury, but the legacy they represent. And yes, his assets are insured: health, guitar, even hands. But his most valuable asset remains untouchable: trust. What's the financial lesson Willie Nelson leaves us with? That resilience beats riches. That legacy is forged through failure, not inherited. That your worst moment can become your defining one if you face it with honesty and grit. And what of their friendship? Willie and Kris. It wasn't made of glossy interviews or Instagram posts. It was built in buses, bars, back roads, and shared silences. They were co-architects of outlaw country, fueling a sound that told the truth, even when it hurt. Together, they cracked the glossy shell of Nashville's old order and gave voice to the misfits, the drifters, the dreamers who felt country music had forgotten them. Their bond was less about fame and more about faith in each other, in music, in the possibility of freedom through song. Today, their shared legacy pulse.